My daughter told me I was nothing to her. But after her wedding, when she begged me for money, I told her, ask your new family. Hello Reddit I, plus here. I still remember the night everything shattered, the night my only child, the one I had devoted my entire life to, looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're no longer part of my life. I don't owe you anything. You are not important." Those words, spoken so coldly, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I had sacrificed my dreams, my youth, my happiness, just to give her a better future. Yet at that moment, she saw me as nothing more than an inconvenience. Months later, when she came knocking on my door after her grand wedding, asking for money to cover some unexpected expenses, I stared at her with a calmness I didn't know I had, and told her, "Let your new family handle it." The look of shock on her face was almost surreal, as though she couldn't fathom that the man who had given everything would finally say no. But to understand how I got there, you have to know the whole story. My name is Martin Blake, and I'm 52 years old. When my wife left me, I was just 28, holding a baby girl in my arms and wondering how I was going to do this alone. My daughter's name is Sophie, and from the moment she was born, my world shrank down to a single point: her well-being. Raising Sophie alone wasn't just hard, it was brutal. I worked 2 jobs for years, teaching history at a community college by day and stocking shelves at a supermarket by night. I missed sleep, meals, and any semblance of a social life. My friends disappeared one by one, unable to understand why I never came out for drinks, why I always said, "I can't. I have my kid tonight," but I didn't complain. Not once. In my mind, Sophie deserved everything I hadn't had growing up: stability, love, security. I took on extra shifts to afford ballet classes, music lessons, school trips. I sacrificed vacations, relationships, and hobbies to give her every opportunity. Yet it wasn't just about money. I tried to raise her with gratitude and humility. I taught her to say thank you, to understand the value of hard work, to know that nothing comes free, not even love. For a long time, I thought it worked. Sophie was sweet, ambitious, and appreciative. We had our little rituals: pancakes every Sunday morning, walks in the park after school, movie nights on Fridays. I went to every parent-teacher conference, every piano recital, every sports day. I believed our bond was unbreakable. Everything started to change when Sophie was 21. She was in college, bright and full of potential, when she met Leon Hart, a polished, ambitious young man who came from money. At first I was happy for her. She'd had her share of heartbreaks and disappointments, and Leon seemed stable. But almost overnight her world shifted. She stopped calling as much. Her weekend visits became rare. Our conversations, once warm and full of details, turned into short, perfunctory texts. Busy. Talk later, I told myself it was normal. Young love does that. Priorities shift. It's just a phase, I thought. But the signs became harder to ignore. For 21 years we had celebrated her birthday together. Even when money was tight, I saved up for a small cake, a nice dinner, something special. But that year, when I asked about her plans, she said, "I'm busy, Dad." No invitation, no explanation. Later I found out through a friend's Instagram feed that she'd celebrated at a fancy restaurant with Leon's family. I stared at the photos, Sophie laughing, Leon's mother handing her an expensive-looking gift, and felt a tight knot forming in my stomach. Still, I didn't make a scene. I justified her behavior. She doesn't want Leon to feel left out. It's fine. She'll come around. But she didn't. When Sophie called to say she was engaged to Leon, my first reaction was happiness. I'd seen her dream of this moment since she was a little girl. But beneath the joy was a creeping sense of dread. I had no illusions about Leon's opinion of me. He was always polite but distant, his smile a little too rehearsed, his tone a little too condescending. As the wedding preparations began, my fears were confirmed. I wasn't included in anything. No planning meetings, no fittings, no discussions about finances. Whenever I offered to help, Sophie brushed me off with vague excuses. Leon was even worse. One day, when I asked if they needed help with costs, he smiled that syrupy smile of his and said, "We wouldn't want to burden you with the details." Burden me, as though I were some irrelevant outsider. On the day of the wedding, I dressed carefully. A dark navy suit, polished shoes, a tie I'd bought just for the occasion. My hands shook as I adjusted my cufflinks. I told myself this was going to be the moment we healed, that when Sophie saw me there, her father, she would remember everything I had done for her. I arrived at the Willow Creek Manor, the grand hall where the ceremony was being held. The entrance was lined with flowers, photographers, and elegantly dressed guests. When I gave my name to the staff at the entrance, they hesitated. Their smiles faded. One of them whispered to another. Finally, a young woman in a black blazer said, "I'm sorry, sir. You're not on the list." I blinked at her. There must be a mistake. I tried calling Sophie. No answer. And then Leon appeared, immaculate in his tuxedo, his arm draped around one of his groomsmen. He walked over with that same fake warmth he always used with me. "Martin," he said smoothly, "I'm sorry you came all the way here, but Sophie and I decided it would be best if you didn't attend. We don't want any drama." Any drama. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, realizing this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. My daughter, my Sophie, had made a deliberate choice to exclude me from the most important day of her life. I watched through the glass doors as she walked down the aisle on Leon's father's arm. She looked radiant, happy, a stranger. In that moment, something inside me broke. Weeks later, she appeared at my door, asking for money to cover unexpected bills from the wedding. She spoke as though nothing had happened, as though I should still be her safety net. I looked at her, and for the first time, felt nothing but emptiness. "Let your new family pay for it," I said quietly. The shock on her face was almost comical. For years, I had been her rock, her provider, her rescuer. She had come to believe I would always be there, no matter how she treated me. But that day, I wasn't. I closed the door behind her and stood there in the silence of my small apartment, realizing that in giving her everything, I had taught her to take me for granted. And for the first time in my life, I began to think about myself. After Sophie stormed away that day, I sank into my old armchair and stared at the blank television screen. My apartment was quiet. Too quiet. For years, my world had been filled with Sophie's voice, her laughter, her teenage tantrums, her excited chatter about school projects, her nervous giggles when she first started dating. Now all I had was silence. And in that silence, something began to change inside me. For the first time in decades, I thought about myself. Who was I without Sophie? Without the role of provider, rescuer, father who sacrifices. The truth scared me. I didn't know. 2 months passed before Sophie reached out again. It was a Saturday morning when I received a text. "Dad, I need to see you. It's urgent. Please don't ignore me." Despite everything, my heart skipped a beat. Maybe this was the reconciliation I'd hoped for. Maybe she finally realized what I meant to her. We met at a cafe near the city square. Sophie arrived in a designer coat, her hair perfectly styled, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. She barely looked at me as she sat down. After a few pleasantries, she leaned forward and said, "Leon and I are going through a rough patch. Things are complicated. I need your help." I braced myself. She explained that they had overspent on the wedding, taken out loans, and now bills were piling up. Leon's parents, despite their wealth, had tightened the purse strings, and Sophie was desperate. "Dad," she said softly, her eyes filling with tears, "you're the only one I can turn to. You've always been there for me. Please, just help me this one last time." For a moment, my instincts screamed at me to reach for my wallet. That was my role, wasn't it? To fix things? To protect her? But then I remembered standing outside Willow Creek Manor, being told I wasn't welcome at her wedding. I remembered her cold words. "You are not important." I shook my head. "No, Sophie, you made your choice. You wanted a life with Leon, and you pushed me out of it. Now you have to live with that choice." Her expression shifted instantly, from fragile daughter to furious woman. "So you're just going to abandon me?" she snapped. "After everything? What kind of father does that make you?" I felt the old guilt rising, the familiar urge to defend myself. But I swallowed it down. "A father who has nothing left to give," I said. She left without another word, her heels clicking sharply against the cafe floor. For weeks after that meeting, Sophie bombarded me with messages. "I can't believe you're turning your back on me. Leon's family says you've always been a failure. Maybe they're right. If Mom were around, she wouldn't have treated me like this." That last one hit hard. Sophie's mother had left when she was just a baby, walking out without so much as a backward glance. I had raised Sophie alone, pouring everything I had into being both mother and father. And yet here she was, using that wound against me. The old me would have caved, desperate to prove my worth. But this time, I didn't respond. I let the messages pile up until, eventually, they stopped. Strangely enough, when the barrage of manipulation ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I started taking walks in the evenings, not because I was picking Sophie up from a recital or driving her to a friend's house, but simply because I wanted to. I dusted off my old guitar, an instrument I hadn't touched since college, and began strumming again. I even joined a local book club at the library. It was in that book club that I met Rachel, a woman a few years younger than me, with kind eyes and a laugh that made people turn their heads. She wasn't glamorous like Leon's world, but she was genuine. For the first time in a long time, I felt like a man, not just a father. Just when I thought I was moving on, Sophie returned. It was late one night when I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, she was standing there, mascara streaked down her face, suitcase in hand. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Leon kicked me out. I don't know where else to go." My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to let her in, to cradle her like I did when she was 5 years old and scared of thunderstorms. But I hesitated. Was this real? Or was it just another ploy? I stepped aside and she walked in. She told me a story. Leon had cheated. There had been fights. His family had turned against her. She cried into her hands, saying she had nowhere else to go. For 2 weeks she stayed in my apartment. I cooked for her, gave her space, tried not to ask too many questions. For a while it felt like I had my daughter back. But then, one night, I overheard her on the phone. She wasn't crying. She wasn't broken. She was laughing. "Yeah, it worked," she said. "Dad's letting me stay. I'll get some money out of him soon. Don't worry, he always caves." My stomach dropped. The next morning I confronted her. She didn't deny it. Instead she rolled her eyes and said, "Dad, stop being so dramatic. You owe me. After everything, you owe me." That was the moment something inside me snapped. "No, Sophie," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I don't owe you anything anymore. I gave you my youth, my money, my love, my entire life. And all you did was use me. This ends now." I pointed to the door. "You need to leave." She screamed, cried, threatened to never speak to me again. And maybe she meant it, maybe she didn't, but I didn't flinch this time. I didn't beg. I didn't try to fix it. When the door closed behind her, I felt both grief and relief. Grief for the daughter I thought I had, and relief that I was finally free from her manipulations. Now, months later, my life looks different. I still think of Sophie, still ache for the bond we once had. But I no longer let that ache define me. I've grown closer to Rachel. I play my guitar in the evenings, I laugh again, and for the first time in decades, I'm learning what it means to live for myself. It had been almost a year since Sophie walked out of my apartment, suitcase in hand, after I refused to let her manipulate me again. During that year, my life had changed more than I thought possible. I'd settled into a routine, working my teaching job, attending book club, spending weekends with Rachel. There were still moments of loneliness, moments when I missed Sophie so badly my chest ached. But I had learned to carry that pain without letting it rule me. Then, one gray Tuesday morning, as I sorted through the mail, I froze. There was an official-looking envelope with the county seal. I tore it open and felt my stomach twist. Sophie had filed a claim against me. The documents inside alleged that I owed her financial support, claiming that since I had promised to provide for her, I was legally obligated to continue supporting her even as an adult. It was absurd. She was 24 years old, but there it was, in black and white, with her signature at the bottom. I sat at my kitchen table, hands trembling, as Rachel read over the papers. "She's trying to drain you one last time," Rachel said gently. "She thinks you'll fold before it ever gets to court." But she underestimated me. 3 weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse, suit pressed, briefcase in hand. The sky was overcast, as though it shared my mood. Inside, Sophie sat with her lawyer. She looked different, sharper, colder, her once gentle eyes hardened into steel. For a moment, I saw a stranger. When the judge entered, we stood. The case began. Her lawyer painted me as a negligent father who had abandoned his daughter after years of promises. They twisted every sacrifice I'd made, every penny I'd spent, into evidence of a lifetime obligation. When it was my turn, I spoke calmly. "Your Honor, I raised Sophie alone after her mother left. I worked 2 jobs. I gave her everything I could. Love, time, money, opportunities. But she is not a child anymore. She is a grown woman, married, capable of making her own choices. I don't owe her my future." The courtroom was silent when I finished. Sophie wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge dismissed her claim almost immediately. But the real victory wasn't the legal one. It was standing there, looking at Sophie across the courtroom and realizing that for the first time, I felt no guilt, no crushing need to fix her mess, just a quiet sadness and freedom. After the court case, I thought I'd never hear from Sophie again, but a month later, she appeared at my door. This time, she didn't come with makeup smeared or suitcases in hand. She came neatly dressed, calm, her voice soft. "Dad," she said, "I've been thinking about everything. I'm sorry. I want us to have a relationship again. Can we start over?" For a moment my heart leapt. Was this real? Could it be that she finally understood? But then I noticed it, the way her eyes flicked around my apartment, lingering on the guitar, the books, the flowers Rachel had left on the table. She wasn't here out of love. She was here because she saw I had built a life without her, and she wanted control again. I don't think that's possible, Sophie, I said softly. Her face hardened instantly. So you're just going to replace me? With her? She hissed, glaring at Rachel's flowers. I shook my head. No one can replace you. You're my daughter. But I can't let you keep using me. Love without respect isn't love. And I deserve respect for once. She had no comeback. She just stood there, eyes flashing, before turning and walking out. That was the last time I saw Sophie. Maybe one day she'll change. Maybe she won't. I can't control that anymore. What I can control is my own life. Now, I wake up in the mornings without dread. I teach my classes with energy I thought I'd lost. I spend evenings laughing with Rachel, strumming my guitar, or simply enjoying the peace of my little apartment. And sometimes, when the memories creep in, when I think of Sophie as a little girl clutching my hand on the first day of kindergarten, I feel that old ache. But it no longer rules me. I gave her everything I had. I can live with the fact that it wasn't enough for her. What I can't live with anymore is giving her the power to destroy me, so I let go. And in letting go, I found something I thought I had lost forever, myself.